Welcome to the Mamaverse, the ultimate self-care journey for every mama. So the Mamaverse is a really fun place for moms to create meaningful connections where they can join teams, take part in their self-care and wellness activities, earn points, and unlock really cool rewards. Today, the topic of today is breaking through mental barriers with Tamisha, and I'm going to bring her in. Hi, Tamisha, into the convo. Hi there. How are you?
Hello. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I think can you move your camera down slightly so I can get you in frame?
When I was
There
also
you
trying
go. There you go. How are you?
to take this. I'm trying to take this thing off. I am well. Oh my,
So,
wait,
to,
how do you take this off? I was using a filter that didn't work. I'm here.
okay, welcome, Tamisha. You are a radical self-forgiveness coach, and today our topic is breaking through mental barriers. So, Tamisha, I would love to invite you to an introduction of yourself for the audience.
Hello. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for seeing your light and allowing your light to see mine, because I think that's really how we connect, when we can allow ourselves to see each other light. And so I am Tamisha, and I am a radical self-forgiveness coach, or a radical forgiveness coach. And what I do is basically just help women. And now I'm shifting the women that I work with into more Caribbean women, because I think that's where our language is. I know the language of Caribbean trauma, you know, and so I sort of wanted to spend more time there. And what I do is I help women just get to the root of whatever is upsetting, whatever their patterns are. And from that space, from that root, we can correct everything else in our lives.
Awesome. So, I would love to know, how did you begin on this journey? How did you get involved in this space?
Yeah. I hear this question. People ask me all the time, like, how did you manage to become a forgiveness coach? And honestly, there's so many elements to this answer, but I feel it is most truthful when I say it was really what I needed to rescue myself. And it's what I ask for, because I used to be an emotional junkie, right? A negative junkie. And it spilled over in so many parts of my life, especially with my children. And I asked for something that would really help me to dissolve and all these dysfunctional patterns that I had. And so forgiveness sort of dropped into my lap, first with being a student in A Course in Miracles. I've been doing that since 2012. And 2 years ago, and really during the pandemic, I had an episode with my oldest son, my 16-year-old son, that had happened. And it just sort of shook me, those things that happen. And for sure it's the divine alarm clock telling you to wake up. And I realized that, I really need to take my trauma seriously. My son is about to be 16 years old. He just turned 16. And I don't want him to go into adulthood with trauma that I have caused him. And so I wanted an opportunity to really help him and myself heal through those experiences. And just one day I was listening to a podcast and I heard about radical forgiveness, and I said, it just felt as if it was for me. And so I decided to get a forgiveness coach, and what I experienced, I just wanted to share with other people. And so that's with other moms, with other women. And so that's why I got into it.
Oh, wow. So, can you just shed some light a little bit more on what radical forgiveness means?
Yeah, so radical forgiveness is a spiritual tool that is used to shift your energy, transmute that energy, whatever you're holding on to, resentment, that guilt, that shame from our trauma, from our past, from whatever experience. And so a lot of times we give a big chunk of our energy, of our vibration, of our energy into those negative thoughts, those density, those force, right? And so radical forgiveness is a spiritual technology that dissolve all of that and move your energy back into higher consciousness, where you can experience joy and bliss and wholeness and harmony, and really fully connect with the true self, with who you truly are. And
Is it?
go ahead.
No, 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 no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so to do radical forgiveness is it's to really understand that there isn't anything to forgive. It's weird when you say that, but it shows you the divine perfection of your life, right? It shows you that everything in your life happens for a reason. Everything have a purpose. And very often we say that, right? But we only believe it when it's sort of convenient for us, when it doesn't hurt, when it doesn't really feel painful. You know, for example, your our children being sick, or we lost our child. Like, how can we see the perfection in that, right?
Mm.
And it's just really getting there. And forgiveness always takes us there.
Is this similar to gratitude work?
So it could be, yes. So gratitude is, so I have a group of women that I coach, and my practice in prayer, I'm also a prayer practitioner. And so we do gratitude prayer. And so our prayers are never to ask, because we know that all is already given. And so what
Mm.
gratitude does is invoke all of the things that you already have and is, so yes, it is a form of gratitude. It could be very, very similar to gratitude as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So can you, I think you like touched on this a little bit. Can you just like go a little bit more into how this is um important in shifting your life?
Yeah. Whew, yeah.
I guess that's a big question.
No, I love that question. Great, great question. So here's the thing. If we are constantly in giving our energy, right, to resentment and all the things, all the negative, we call it a force, right? Because we have, life is like the force and the power, right? We know that we cannot have true power when we are holding on to fear, right? And blame and all these things, to our trauma, to our victim story, right? And so imagine that being loosed or being dissolved. Like, where else can you go? Where else can you go but forward? Where else can you go but into higher vibration? Where else can you go into really living a fulfilling, purposeful life, right? So
I
I think
love this.
I think that's really short, and what feels more truthful for me in answering that question, because there's just no way we can go. And I had to realize that as being a mom, yeah, you know yes, I was saying constantly that I love my children, and I deeply do, right? We deeply do love our children. But when we are being fueled, and when we give more of who we are to a victim story, how are we really capable of loving our children, or loving ourselves and loving each other?
Mm,
You know,
mm,
it's not the fullness, it's not the fullest love that we can give. And
mm.
then we can really dissolve these things, these identities of pain, and identities of, lack and limiting belief, um, we can really become the full expression, the full extension of all there is, the oneness, right?
Right, right.
And so I
I,
had to learn to love myself from that space. So now I can really love my kids.
mhm,
And what
mhm.
opened up for me was just this beautiful thing called motherhood. It was like, you know what how I describe it? You know that there is this book called The Secret Garden?
Mhm.
So imagine that there is a secret garden and it's just so beautiful and everything in there is just so blooming, like butterflies all over, and the flowers are just colorful. I mean, that is what opened for me in my experience now being a mom. And I didn't know that being a mom could be just, wow, so magnificent.
That's a beautiful. That is really beautiful. So you mentioned that you work with a group of women
Hmm.
through a process. So
Hmm.
like what does that process look like? And where are the women usually starting from and then how do they get to where they want to be?
Yeah. So the women that I work with start from, so let's take one person that I'm currently working with right now, who wasn't even a client of mine, um, was going through a divorce, right? And being a single mom, and just having that entire shift in her life and feeling like she just really failed.
Mm,
And now we're at, ooh, why does this feel like a failure to you, right? Why does ending a marriage really feel like a failure to you? What is your interpretation of a successful life, right? Where did you get that interpretation from? What did your marriage feels like? What is the most painful or the emotion that keeps showing up over and over in your marriage? And when was the first time you ever felt this emotion? Where the first time you felt it? And sometimes it's usually, ooh, 6 year old, my father did something, or this person at school did this to me, or a teacher did this to me. And so what did you tell yourself when that was happening to you?
mm,
And I tell myself maybe I was a bad person. I tell myself that I wasn't special. I tell myself that I'm dumb, you know, all these bad things we tell ourselves as children when we have experiences, when we have those sort of when those things happen to us, when our parent, when our father leaves, when the teacher embarrasses us, when we having a hard time learning, and people don't really take that time to care for us, and leave us in the space of feeling really guilty, really stupid, really blamed, really, unsupported, really scared. And when we stay in those places and we, as children, we interpret that into our own little things, but that is what we build our entire life around.
mm. It's like a lot of like inner child
Hmm.
work.
Yeah. And so once my clients can identify what is that thing that what they truly believe about themselves from that space,
Hmm.
then we can heal that.
Mm.
Then we can see the patterns. And sometimes, like, so one of my clients, I hope she's not looking because I did send her an invite, had partners, and my same client who's going through a divorce. And this weekend we got to it. She had an older brother who she had really admired and was going through a hard time in his life when she was 10, 11 years old. And she just felt like she just wanted her brother to always protect her, but because of whatever he was going through, he was unable to do that. And so
Mm.
she picked all her partners feeling, wanting, needing that sort of protection, and never got it.
Mm.
And so now that she's kind of dating again, now we can set up for healthy relationships. Now we can say, well, you know, you don't need that. You don't, nobody's going to take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but you mentioned that you're kind of making a slight pivot by focusing with Caribbean women. I
Mm-hmm.
was just curious. I wanted to ask you earlier, but I was just curious, like what was the idea behind the shift? And like just curiously, like what is this specifically about Caribbean women that's, different that
Yeah.
you can
So,
articulate?
yeah, so I don't think there's any difference. First of all, so I am Caribbean. I grew up in the Caribbean. I moved to the United States 17 years ago. Okay. And um, so I have been working with a coach to really step into who I truly am and to accepting those parts of me that I don't really feel comfortable with,
Hmm.
and to identify where I can be truly helpful. And so I discovered while doing this work, I am really insecure with my accent, right? With my Caribbean accent.
Really? Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, right? The silly things we tell ourselves that is not, it's funny. So yeah, and so in doing that, I realized the where I can show up and really fully express my accent and don't hide my voice is with Caribbean people, right? Because Caribbean women, because that is where I don't need to, sound different. But what I also recognized was even though we all, different country, different parts of the world, we all experience trauma and it's the same thing, the language is different as well. And I know the language of Caribbean trauma.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
so and it goes back to like, we don't need to learn anything new. So I don't need to learn a different culture language of trauma when I already know what trauma feels like for Caribbean women. I can
Mm.
speak it. I can say something that you wouldn't even understand, but a Caribbean woman would definitely understand. So that's kind of where it came from, that shift, that yeah, there was no need for me to learn the language of anybody else when I can serve a community where I know the language to the T.
Yeah. It's like cultural familiarity
Yeah, yeah.
and understanding how to bridge the gaps between different cultures and all of that. Yeah, I get that. I get that. So in your website, I noticed you also had a section about radical living.
Hmm.
What what is radical living? Um, like, yeah, what's the difference between that?
So radical living is, what is radical living? Radical living is really making the commitment, really making and sticking to the commitment without any judgments, even when you don't feel like it, right? To live in the full expression of who you are, in living
Mm,
a fully loving life, like actually walking it. And it's a lot of mind correcting. It's a lot of getting out of negative thinking. It's a lot about expanding that gap between our thoughts so that we can really choose what we're doing with this thought. Are we letting it go, or are we spending a couple time with it, or are we choosing another thought? Because we do have that gap between every thought, and we make the choice what we're going to do with it, right?
mm-hmm.
And so radical living is really learning these things, expanding the gap so that we spend less time in the guilt and the shame and the judgments and the opinion and the unworthiness and the disbelief, and really spending more time. It's almost feeling like heaven on earth, right? When people say that.
Mm,
So spending more time in our loving presence, spending more time in our beauty, spending more time in our acceptance, spending more time in our joy. And it's just an energetic thing, right? So we vibrate more in our love and presence. And how do we love more? We stay in the vibration. We vibrate to the energy of love. So if we can stay there, the only thing is we can be that, right? If we stay in the vibration of shame, which is what? Emotional, feeling emotionally paralyzed, feeling drained, feeling, that's what we show up as, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
So, okay. So let's say I'm thinking this thought, like I don't know, I'm embarrassed or I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I know consciously it's like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about these things for me. I want to about me. I want to feel like proud of myself or
Mm-hmm.
worthy. So I'm here. I know I want to be thinking here and vibrate, like you said, at a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So consciously I know that, but my body doesn't feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So to get from feeling like unworthy to like worthy is the path forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And what do we forgive? When we say self-forgiveness, right? The only thing we're forgiven is forever thinking that we're something besides who we truly are, for thinking we're unworthy. That's all we're really forgiven. That's all there is to forgive. Just having that, we're not saying that it's bad. We're not saying it's good. We're not saying it's bad. We're just saying that, but that's not who you are,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
You are whatever you think. What do you think you are? What do you, not what you think, but what do you know? Who do you know you are?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you believe that you are anything other than who you know you truly are, that's what we're forgiven.
Mm. This is powerful stuff.
But how do we know who we truly are? How do you know? How do you know who you truly are?
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're like
So
blowing my
it's
mind here.
right. So it's creating that connection with whoever you think your higher power is, because who you truly are, if you are one with that power, that's who you are. And so let's just say God, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you know that you are one with God, who do you truly are? You're
Mm.
beautiful. What does God means to you? The whole, you know infinite expression of beauty, of
Mm.
joy, harmony, abundance, understanding, courage, acceptance. All these qualities are of God. So if I am one with God, then that is who I am, right? There's no part of anything, any definition or anything of God that says shame, guilt, blame, unworthy, suffering. There's no part of the characteristics of God have any of those words in it. And so therefore I cannot be anything but who God is, right? So I'm
Mm.
just forgiving myself for thinking that I was unworthy.
Mm. So, in your experience working with moms, have you found like a common
Mhm.
theme that women struggle with and then they're working through?
Guilt.
Yeah, the mom guilt.
Yeah. The
Mm.
mom guilt is serious. The mom guilt is so silly. The mom guilt would be something like this. I have my son to pick up at 7 o'clock from daycare, right? But if I pick him up at 6 o'clock and he's the only person there, I'm a bad mom.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I
Right?
get
You have
that.
an entire hour left. We have an entire hour left, but yet we are still that guilt, that
Mm.
mom guilt. That, I experience it myself all the time too. It's serious. Like when we have children, I feel like our feet is just planted into that I cannot make the next step until I know for sure my children would be okay.
I get it.
Yeah, we want to see that. Being moms and being really on this journey, and yeah, it messes a lot with our trust. I shouldn't say it mess, but it gives us opportunity to really practice trusting what is the best for me, because I have to believe that what's the best for me is also the best for my children, right? But sometimes we cannot really see how our children would be kind of woven into our plans. And sometimes we just want to see that. You're like, God, just please show me that movie so that I can see that everything will be okay before I make the next step, especially when you're in business and, something come up and you're like, what happened if you get this opportunity where you have to move, and the thing you're thinking about, oh my God, you're taking your kids away from school and from their friends and all this thing, but you don't know what's on the other side,
Mm.
So it's a lot of trust. Yeah, it's a lot of mom guilt is definitely real.
Do you think it's partly from what moms feel like society is expecting of us, and then we amplify that in our mind?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And until we realize that we can give our life and we can give our words and our terms our own definition, we are not going to get out of it. We can give success. Who says success has to be spending 10, 15, 5 years in college, right? Who says, what is your definition of success? What is your definition of happy? Is it things that you truly value, or are you valuing other people's belief, other
Mm-hmm.
people's experiences? And it's really getting to the core of what is your own personal value?
Mm.
What is your own personal knowing? What is
Mm.
your own personal want for your life? What is your own highest vision? What do you think God's highest vision for your life is? And until we can really unravel all these parts of people's life that we take on, and as this is what it is, and society, movie of this is what it is, we are going to be stuck in the guilt.
So, if you could give all of the moms who are watching live and on the replay one piece of advice, what would that be?
What would that be? The reason our children upset us is really not the reason we think they do. Your children not doing their homework, your children not doing the dishes, your children tantrum, your children upsetting you, or it's not that simple. You're not upset because of the things that your child is doing. You're upset because of the belief you have about yourself. And so if you can honor when your children upset you and use it as an adventure to get to the root of what you really feel, what you really believe, you can experience a relationship with your children, a relationship with yourself, a different type of love, a completely different type of love. That will be my advice. And
Mm.
it is my advice because it's a thing that really shift my life, that really shift my own acceptance, my own self-love, and my children, the love for my children, the gentleness for my children. I'm in so many groups with gentle parenting, and I follow so many gentle parenting, but yeah, I don't gentle parent. I just love my children. I deeply love my children. So there's just, yeah, that's it.
Mm.
Ooh.
Tamisha,
Yeah.
that was such beautiful advice. I love that. It kind of makes me myself kind of reflect on how, like, when I get triggered and think about, like, why is this triggering me? It's like, and it's usually something small. But thank you for that advice. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the viewers?
Oh, what do I want to share?
It could be
If you
if you wanted
if
to.
you wanted to, if you want some help, some work, some advice, some whatever you want, if you're having a hard time just having peaceful relationships with yourself, with other people, I mean, you feel free to reach out to me. My website is TamishaHarriman.com, or you can find me on Instagram. I believe my handle name now is My Forgiveness Coach. Just look for me, The Forgiveness Coach, and I'm open to just share a lot of tools with you. On my link in my bio, there is a 7 days self-forgiveness challenge. I think that if you really commit to that, it would just open up a lot of healing for you. And I think that's what we want to do now. We just want to heal those wounds and remember who we are, and live from that space.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Everybody who's watching, go and give Tamisha a follow. It should be up in the linked down here. Thank you so much, Tamisha, for joining us in the Mamaverse on this Instagram live. I learned so much. It made me like be more reflective about how I interact with my family and why. But
Mhm.
thank you so much. It was so fun getting to chat with you. And everybody, give her a follow. And we will chat more later.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for having me.
Have a good one.
All right.